Welcome to the future of customer engagement for product market fit, facilitated by Daryl Glover, an international pharmacist consultant. He also is an expert in tech, marketing, and management strategy. Welcome, Daryl.
Hey, Gene. Great speaking with you again.
So, theme number 7. Like we got an epic rap battle going on here. Tell me what's going on with this title.
Yeah, I know, and exactly. And this is where the idea came from, was from the epic rap battles of history. We thought we'd take a look at an epic marketing battle, face-to-face versus virtual customer advisory board, to see which one would come out on top.
And how did the panel respond to this theme?
The panel was very active, and they had some very clear ideas on where each of these kind of fit. But we'll see kind of a surprising result here when we get down to the survey at the end. So our international experts really had a lot to say on this topic.
So in your executive summary, you go over the 3 types of cabs that we're talking about here. Tell us what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so I think as Michael pointed out, the first thing we have to look at is, why do we even have a cab in the first place? And the importance of having a cab is really about building relationships with your customers. And that's kind of the thing that we have to focus on, whether you're looking at face-to-face, virtual, or a combination of the two. And this is important because 62% of the companies have no idea what their customers are doing with their products or services. Now, in terms of which kind of cab that we would select, we all know that they have their own strengths and weaknesses. But what's interesting is that the selection could also be influenced by the team that wants to run a cab, because it depends on what their budget is, what they have access to, what their participants look like, where the geography is. And also, what's kind of fascinating from this, that the panel brought up as well, is that there's an opportunity to establish, a vertical or an industry. So within that, to really focus on one area where normally you wouldn't actually even have a cab in the first place.
Well, let's jump into key point number 1 then, which is the face-to-face version of the cab, which is kind of where we started originally, right? We had these little focus groups. We got together. We looked each other in the eye. Walk us through this.
So when we look at face-to-face meetings, there are some places where it's critical where, the panel didn't feel a virtual could fit in. So really looking at, for example, if you're doing brainstorming or relationship building, a lot of the focus was around when you needed to have kind of that face-to-face connection and making sure that stakeholders are connecting with each other and collaborating and gaining from the activities for performing. So it's really kind of focused around those kinds of times.
And then in key point number 2, you talk about virtual cabs. So let's elaborate just a little bit with a definition of what is a virtual cab in this application.
Yeah, so a virtual cab can be done one of 2 ways. One would be like on the Currnt platform, where it's asynchronous, so that people can communicate and interact with each other at times when it's convenient. Or it could be active, where you have everybody together at a meeting simultaneously. And, what's kind of interesting about that, if you kind of look at the concept, especially when we're talking about synchronous meetings, is that, as Jack pointed out, all meetings suffer from distractions. And it's easier for people when they can't see each other to get distracted, to do other things, read email, instead of really focusing on the content of the meeting. So I think from a synchronous point of view, that's a really important point to keep in mind. The other thing is, your selection of a cab will depend on whether you're just looking locally to customers that are easily accessible and can come to your facility, versus you're looking at talking to global customers where it's not so easy to bring them in. And so, kind of depending on that, a virtual could be preferred. And a lot of people prefer virtual meetings because it's much more convenient for everyone as well.
So the third option then obviously would be synergy, would be a combination of both virtual and face-to-face cabs. So explain this outcome to us.
So when we kind of looked at that, the panel really felt that the combination was very strong. Not only can it be successful from the outcome, but also could be cost effective. And when they were looking at it, they were sort of looking at it from the point of view, maybe I start off with face-to-face, build those initial relationships, take that strength from that. And then because people might be geographically dispersed or in different time zones, then, I could do a virtual meeting after that to really make those connections. So, they found it to be really relevant in different areas such as discovery, where you're really having those kind of in-depth one-on-one interviews, starting off with a face-to-face, and then kind of doing follow-ups to that using virtual meetings because they have a much wider coverage.
So let's jump off that into this interesting survey that you put together here, which is showing the three types of cabs, vCabs, and face-to-face. So, and then the synergy of the two. So share this with us because it looks like the vCab, I'm shocked there were 0 votes. I'm really surprised by that.
Yeah, I actually was as well. I was expecting that there would be some people that would be all for vCab, some people that would be all for face-to-face, and I was anticipating that the combination was probably going to be the strongest, especially based on the feedback that I was seeing from the participants. But yeah, I was also surprised that nobody thought a pure vCab was the way to go, or a pure face-to-face. So really the combination of the two is important, and I believe that the panel, because of their experience on the Currnt platform, looking at asynchronous ways of conducting virtual cabs, kind of see the power of that platform and how that can work really well with more traditional methods.
So in the 44%, did they think face-to-face exclusively? That was their vote?
Yes, that was correct. So that was.
I don't know if that surprises me more than 0 on the vCab or that the face-to-face was so high, because if it's an ongoing project, it seems kind of surprising that 44% would think face-to-face is the only way to go. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would, and I think a lot of that's got to do with the different kind of companies and industries that people are in, and sort of that still need to have that kind of human connection where people don't feel they can get that from a virtual environment. I mean, my own experience in running these virtual cabs is that actually people develop very similar type relationships from just as well as in a face-to-face type environment. So I think maybe a lot of it's got to do with experience as well, and not really seeing how those connections and bridges can come together.
Interesting. So let's talk about these top 3 experts from contributing to this particular theme.
Yeah, I mean, what's nice is that they've all been very strong. They come from different industries, background, countries. So it's really showing that the interest in customer advisory boards, virtual or face-to-face, really cuts across all geographies, and that people's experiences and opinions, no matter where they're at or what industry they're in, are very highly valued.
Oh gosh, thanks for sharing this with us, Daryl. This is so fascinating. I'm so in love with this data. It's so curious. It asks so many more questions. I can't wait to find out where the conversation's leading, which leads us, I guess, to theme number 8. What are you talking about now, and what are we going to talk about next?
So theme number 8 is going to be really interesting. We're challenging the panel to put together a pitch to internally sell a cab focused on the customer experience. So really kind of reaching out to those customers that aren't your customers, and how do you connect with them, and how do you sell those ideas internally. So I think we'll get some really good insight from the panel on the different pitches that they're putting together.
Great job, Daryl. Thanks for sharing this deck with us here today. Again, that's Daryl Glover. He's an international pharmacist consultant. He also is an expert in tech, marketing, and management strategy. And Daryl, we will talk again.
Yep, looking forward to it, Gene.